Welcome, everybody, to No One Likes the Tuna podcast, the world's premier dedicated Fast and Furious podcast. My name is Nick Nocera.
And I'm Daryl Wong.
And we're the world's sort of two most preeminent Fast and Furious scholars, I would say, for the uninitiated. We got a couple new listeners this week. Just
Excellent.
A little bump up. A little bump.
We've been going. It's been what now? 14 seasons worth of Fast and Furious movies?
We are in the middle of our 15th cycle.
15.
That is crazy, right?
Goodness. Yeah.
Yes. If you count the marathons as an entire cycle.
Got it. Right.
So that is where we're at right now. Daryl, we watched Furious 7 this week, right?
That's correct.
That's something we did. Now, we've been watching the series backwards at this moment in time. We started with Hobbs and Shaw this cycle, and we watched Fate of the Furious last week, and this week, Furious 7. Thoughts on Furious 7 this week, just as an overall starter for us?
I mean, I'm pretty light on stuff. I will say that I do really appreciate this backwards watch that we're doing.
I kind of did this week, yeah.
Yeah, I touched on it last week in terms of like entering the series through the Hobbs and Shaw perspective and then working to know our key characters, Dom, Letty, Brian, getting to know them from their most current up to sort of their most, their oldest sort of presence. And I actually think it's a pretty good watch through. It definitely changes the way the series feels.
Yeah,
watching it in this sequence.
It totally does. I was thinking, especially during the Paul Walker remembrance montage, because it's been so long since I've seen One and Skinny Vin, and like sort of that putting a little distance between me and that movie sort of made me be like, oh, great. I'm looking forward to it. You know, like it also made me look forward to 4. Which is something I never thought I would say.
But what about 4 do you think you look forward to?
I'm interested in this idea that, you know how like cloudy and horrible Vin Diesel is. And he's, in 7, he's sort of just like full embodiment of this Dom ethos. But 4, I feel like he was still trying to do some stuff or trying to find that rhythm that made this a sort of franchisable character. And I think everybody was looking to do that, right? I think the franchise thing was in everybody's minds. And so I think there's some notes of that franchisable Dom Toretto in 4, but there's also still some notes of this sort of wily, fun young man, which I'm looking forward to paying attention to.
Right.
You know? I'm also appreciating the backwards watch. It's just I pulled out a lot this watch through.
Let's walk
I have little
through
things,
this.
I got big things.
Good.
Elena has had the baby at this point.
Yes, but we haven't seen her. We didn't see her this whole movie.
That's not true. We definitely saw her when she was working for Hobbs in his office. And they get in a big fight with Deckard Shaw. So, and she's certainly not visibly pregnant.
Right.
So this is theoretically, we know that this movie is 3 years after 6 because of the age of Jack O'Connor. And well, we've always assumed he's around 3 years old. And so 3 years after 6, they break up at the end of 6. So she's had the kid, and the kid is a couple years old.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Unless he like went back and fucked Elena at some point. Yes.
This baby's not 3 years old in Fate of the Furious.
How old is the baby in Fate of the Furious?
That baby looks like less than a year. 1 or less. Like less than 1 for sure.
Ah, that's true. So he obviously like sort of went out on Letty a little bit, right? This puts Dom, I think, in a precarious situation.
Hmm.
I think this puts Dom in a precarious situation with the timeline of his fidelity to Leticia Ortiz.
Hmm.
I don't see any way around it because you're right. The baby is like a year old maximum
Mm-hmm.
in Fate.
Right.
So
And he wakes up with Elena in the beginning of 5.
6.
Of 6.
In that villa in where is Barcelona or wherever
Uh-huh.
they are.
Which
Right?
which we believe is the latest that they could have conceived the baby.
Yeah, because then he goes to London, tracks down Letty, and then goes back to LA, where Elena breaks up with him, quote unquote, really, like ditches her for Letty, who he's married to and knows that.
Right.
So the latest she could have conceived a child otherwise would be the beginning of 6, which takes place 3 years potentially prior to 7. Big revelation, big stuff going on here. No one likes to do a podcast. So we think Dom went out.
Damn.
We think Dom went out. That's okay,
tough.
You know,
I mean,
tough.
being on the run, like being with Letty, like you'd think they were
It's a hard life. Yeah. You think that would bring them closer together, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Or that they would be inseparable. I feel like if I imagine.
Also, who knows about these people's, sexual.
What happens off camera?
Yeah, well, off camera too, the canon characters. Who knows about the, they may have some sort of, who knows? I'm not a judge as to what everybody does in their own relationship, in their own world, in their own time,
We're just looking for the truth in the fiction here.
We're just looking for the truth. That's exactly right. There's no judgments on No One Likes to Tune a Podcast. We're just looking for the truth in the fiction. That's it. So that was a big one. I know we've talked a lot about babies in the past couple pods, but yeah. And then in the trailer for F9 that we've seen, how old is Paul? Paul, what does he name his kid?
Little Paul.
I don't know. Is that right?
Little Brian. No, this is Brian.
Paul, not Paul. Brian. Yeah, Paul. Yeah. It's confusing because Vin Diesel named his daughter Paula, I think.
Dag. I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he did.
I feel like I don't remember the cameo of Lil Brian in the
trailer.
The trailer.
He's working. He's at some sort of ranch, right? Like Vin is at some sort of ranch with Letty, where they're living their lives. And then the boy is like, he's got like curly hair. I mean, he's certainly like in age. I don't know. He's not like a baby in a crib. I think he's handing him a wrench at one point, maybe.
I hear what you're saying, and like the only thing that's playing in my mind is Hawkeye and his daughter at the beginning of Avengers Endgame. I think about.
Yes, it's very similar to that weird life. It's like Linda Cardellini. Yes, it's very much like that. It's very much like that. So we'll see what the timeline of these movies is actually becoming the most interesting part left for us to talk about, because it is clearly the least figured out thing that the writers have thought about over the experience of writing these movies, right? Is like when everything happens. And it must be a fucking nightmare to be a continuity person or a clearance person or, like just somebody dealing with this shit. Like, can you imagine being a set deck person and being like, okay, we have to get Letty's grave for this movie for 7, right? Because there's a scene where they do Letty's grave. And so they have to get a stone. Either they get a stone made or they make a fake stone with like engraver stock or whatever. Right? But then they have to like, okay, what's the copy say? Like Leticia Ortiz, blah, 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 this date to, well, and
what date do you want it to be? What do you want it to be?
They must have had an email to the writer's room being like, oh, what year did Letty die? And that email sat there for a week while the writers were like, oh, fuck, we got to figure this out now. Like,
Just show it quick, and then we'll show the sledgehammer. Maybe people won't notice.
Yeah, maybe just say what year? 2009. 2009 is great. Just do it. We don't know. We don't know when anything happens.
I mean, when I
Wow.
think about how easily I pass over emails or pass through or pass along work emails, I can totally see that happening. So that's
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I can only imagine like the amount of chaos that I've caused podcasters in who knows where about the nature of the timeline of my work emails,
Hmm. Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
totally feasible.
Absolutely. I can't imagine it's easy dealing with a man so patently insane as your boss is. But um, I imagine it's better to tweet at him. You know,
If you really need something.
if you really need something, just tweet him. So, okay, I'm gonna. Do you want to move? Do you have another thing you want to talk about?
I don't have very much. The only thing I
Okay.
picked up on, I was reading a little bit about I think it was on Wikipedia, and I was reading about I was reading about Seven, and I don't know if I knew this before, but I've part of the original intent when filming 6 and 7 was
Yeah.
for them to be kind of like back to back um
Oh, okay.
pieces, sort of
Okay.
like one continuous story but split in two pieces, the
Oh,
6 and the 7.
interesting.
And so from what I was reading, that actually was part of the rift that was caused between cast and Rock, because their intent was to book out everybody and to have like, I don't know, to pay everybody to have all the people sort of signed
Everybody's
up
on board
for
for 6 and 7, and we're just gonna pay
six and
everybody for a
sevens.
giant shooting block and just do the whole thing.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that was the point where The Rock was like, no, let's do this normally. Like, let's not double book everything. I got other shit to work on. Let's break
Mm,
this into 2 movies. We're not going to film them at the same time. Let's do
mm.
6. Let's do 7. I got other shit to be working on. Like,
That speaks sort of volumes a little bit to why The Rock is in the beginning and end of this movie only,
uh huh, uh
right?
huh. But the
Mm,
goal, yeah, the goal from Vin Diesel was to make like like an epic sort of two-parter, like big story, something that had like a lot that you
I would
could
have loved to see that.
digest and enjoy. Yeah. But when we think about like all of this, I mean, I don't think any of that original 6-7 combo plan. I mean, yeah, you couldn't have taken into account the fact that Paul got into his accident. So even if they were trying to do
I would
that.
have loved to see that so much.
Right.
That
Right.
being said, I think this movie's kind of good, and I'm glad it is the product that it is, right?
Hmm.
I am swayed by this movie's emotional tap into Paul Walker dying heavily. I think it's good partly for that reason. Like, I think if Paul Walker hadn't died and he just like left the series for some, you know what I mean, and they had to do the computer fit for some whatever any other reason, I would be a lot more critical, I think, in a
Hmm.
way about certain aspects of this movie. But the fact that he died and the fact that it's still as good a product as it is, to me, is pretty astonishing. Like, it's an amazing feat, and my amazement comes through watching the movie. Where a lot of times I'm sitting and I'm watching it, and it's like the dialogue is fucking bad, and the action's cool and the stunts are great, but like, it's like choppy and shit, and they had to work with stuff. But I'm constantly watching it, being like, "That's amazing that they did
Right.
that, even though
Right.
he died." You know what I
Right.
mean?
To
Like,
even think like, I don't know, like what's the waiting period? Like, you started making this movie, and how do you know
hmm,
when to make that call? Like, when's a
hmm,
good time to like have that conversation? Like,
right
I
away,
think we should still make this movie.
right away.
How do we go about doing that?
It's right away is the answer.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm not going to go too far into it. I mean, in these situations are not comparable,
Right.
but I worked on a show last year where we were filming at a location in like the middle of upstate New York. And it was a big location for us. And we had 8, 9, 10 scenes to shoot there. And after the first 3 scenes that we shot there, the whole fucking place burned to the ground.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was a big problem. You know, just from a production standpoint, it's a big problem when that happens. Like, we haven't shot out there. We need to figure out what to do. So what happens is literally the morning after it burned down, like the morning of, everybody went to like midday lunch at a diner in the bumfuck upstate New York, sat down and said, here's how can we figure out how to go forward? Like, what pieces of this can we rewrite to other locations and split up? What pieces do we still absolutely need to shoot, and how can we do that from an art department standpoint? When can we do it? What's the rolling process of, like, because we lost camera equipment, especially a really specific like motion control German like piece of equipment or whatever. When can we get a new piece of equipment in so we can resume? You know, it's like, it's about like right away, sit down, figure it out. Do not wait. Right. And that figuring out may be like, we're putting this on hold for a month while this small team can figure it out. Right. Like, we were filming and now we're going to stop filming so that a smaller group can get a plan to go forward. But ultimately, like, to me, there's no point at which everybody in the world stops thinking about this production. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think one of the things we sort of talk about, and I think that one of the things that I learned from you when doing this podcast is that, like, production is a business, you know, and like, in the same way that like businesses of all shapes and varieties have to like plan for like what they're going to do with like the coronavirus stuff. Like, there's not a ton of downtime because there's a lot of time and money and really a lot of people sort of relying on the ongoing business. So if it's production, like, people are sort of ready to make decisions to figure out what to do next. So it sounds like that's something that's true for almost anything that you're doing.
Yeah, and you know, it is a given and accepted fact of the film business that downtime exists, right? Like, there's a phrase called "hurry up and wait," which I'm sure is used in other industries, but it's just like, you gotta wait for somebody else to do their shit before you can do your shit a lot of the time. But when you do your shit, it's like, you gotta do it. Right. Like right now and correctly. So that the next person can work on their stuff. And part of the film from a business perspective, part of the film industry from a business perspective, and there are so many better people to speak on this than me, but I'm the one on this podcast right now, is minimizing those pieces of downtime, right? Like, as an art director, if I have crews standing around while a designer tries to make up their mind in the morning, like do last minute changes and make up their mind on a set we're trying to put up on the stage, which is a specific scenario that has happened to me. And I'm like, I got fucking, you know, I'm paying these guys thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to stand around on a stage while somebody makes a decision, right? It's like money out the door.
Right.
So that downtime, minimizing that is so crucial and difficult. Yeah, which is, I assume, why Paul Walker's death was a very expensive proposition to deal with, you know? So, you know, not just from the VFX standpoint. I'm going to go on to maybe a more lighthearted topic.
Sure.
Is Han Catholic?
Are you saying that based on his funeral?
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, we don't have any indication that he was, except for the funeral.
Yeah, he didn't go to church.
Right.
He didn't have the cross because Shaw had the cross after Owen Shaw had the cross, right? So the cross goes from it goes from Dom or Letty. No, it goes from Letty to Owen Shaw in 6. To Deckard Shaw in the beginning of this movie. To Han when Deckard Shaw leaves it at Han's crash site. To what's his name? 3, Lucas Black picks it up from finds it near the crash site to back to Dom.
Right. And then to Elena.
And somewhere in there, a tracking device gets installed on it.
Right.
For
Right.
eight.
Right.
But we'll talk
Maybe
about that.
maybe Tej figured out how to integrate his technology and jewelry business.
Had to be, because in 6 they don't know where Letty is, and she has the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had a tracking device, they could have just found her. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I say is Han Catholic because have you been to a lot of funerals?
I've been to a few. I've been to a few funerals.
Have you been to Catholic funerals versus no funerals?
I don't think I've been to a Catholic funeral.
Okay. First of all, there's the open wake thing, which is really gross and weird to me.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not trying to, I'm sure there's like people who are Catholic and I have a lot, you know what I mean? I've been to a lot of Catholic funerals. I have like an Italian lineage in which a lot of my relatives are Catholic. I've been to a lot of Catholic funeral masses and wakes, and the open casket scares the fucking shit out of me. Sorry.
To be real. Yeah.
To be real, it's very strange.
I haven't been, is that like a Catholic? So I've definitely been to funerals, but they were always sort of like Chinese, like Asian funerals. And
okay,
for
is
those,
that different? Is that because it's Christian though, yeah?
I think they're Asian, like Christian, they're definitely Asian Christian funerals. So I for sure have seen dead bodies at the funerals. And that's
open
weird.
casket.
Open casket.
To me, it's weird.
It's a wacky thing because they also look funky. They're like,
well, yeah. You ever go
dead.
to somebody's like kind of a rich dude's house and they have like a tuna on the wall, a plasticine fish? You know what I mean? Like I remember in high school, we did this like rich kid's house in fucking Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and in the basement you had like a pool. You had like a room with just like a pool table and one giant plasticine tuna on the wall, right? Like a fish he caught in open water.
What?
Yeah, and you can like get it dipped or what. I don't know what the taxidermy process is, but you know, it's fucking weird.
Do we know anything about kind of like the origin or purpose of like the open casket wake funeral? What's it supposed to do? I don't understand.
I know it's like, I mean, the Catholics do it. That's the only thing I really know about it, is that like, I'm sure other people do it too.
Right.
But the Catholics do it. And it, you know, the body looks fucking crazy.
It's weird. It looks fake. It looks fake.
It looks fake.
I think it looks fake, and the weirdest part is that it's not fake, and that that's a real dead person.
Yes,
right?
Yes, dude. So A was the wake for Han open casket. Like, did Han have a weird plasticine body?
No,
probably not, because he comes back for 9, right? Like they've never seen his, they can't have ever really seen his body.
Oh, yeah.
So I do believe that some Catholics make exceptions for disfigurement.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Or burning is in the case.
Which, in theory, was what Han died of.
Mm-hmm. But the other part about the funeral, the other thing I thought about was the only time I've ever gone to the grave site and watched the casket lower.
Right.
Or been around the casket before it lower, you know, and they lay the flowers, is in a Catholic funeral.
Huh.
Like, I've been to a bunch of different denominations, and mostly it's been going to a mass, and then a small family goes to the grave with the thing, or just like some sort of funeral. My grandmother, who was Episcopal, had just like an Episcopal funeral service. And then literally months later, we like took her ashes and buried her ashes in a specific plot. Like actually, the family did.
I think the majority, now that I think about it, the majority of the funerals I've been to have been open casket.
Mm-hmm.
You go, you'll have a wake like the day before. No, maybe the same day. The same day you'll like do it, and then everybody you get in a car, you all put the highlighter sticker on your car, and you drive to the cemetery, then you hang out for a little while, put the body in the ground.
See, that's interesting.
Well, so if we think about it now, like maybe Han was not Catholic, but it was Dom, because he's part of Dom's family, and because we're led to believe that Han didn't have his own family,
Maybe.
right? Right? Dom went to go grab Han's body. Han, his family, we're gonna give him a nice Catholic burial, crosses.
You may not know the answer to this, and I'm asking it just out of curiosity. Are Koreans Catholic as a overall thing? Like when I see those buses in Flushing and Woodside and shit, like the Korean church buses, are they a certain denomination I would recognize, or are they like Korean church buses?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Presbyterian?
There's some sort of there's a tie between like Asian Christianity, Koreans and Christianity, usually not Catholicism though.
Right. That's what I thought. I think it's like Presbyterian or something else, or it's either in my dumb mind, it's either that or it's a separate like the Korean Church of something.
Whatever.
I don't know. But that was just on my mind because they're all standing at the gravesite, with the casket and the roses and shit.
No more funerals.
No, just one more.
Just one.
Just one more. Yeah, I mean, okay, here's another point. Actually, do you want to do shout outs first? And then we'll go.
Yeah, I got a shout out for the week.
Let's do it, baby.
Yeah.
So we have a segment for our new listeners. We have a segment on this pod. The movies have a lot of product placement, and we thought, in just fairness, as basic fairness, we should have some on the pod too. These are unpaid advertisements for shit we just enjoy using in our everyday life, or hate, or people we're into, or anything really. Yeah, or hate. It comes up. Daryl, what do you want to shout out to this week?
Sure. So I used a new service this week called Medly. And Medly is a prescription delivery service.
Oh.
So in my youth, I had asthma, like somewhat serious asthma. It was often instigated by athletics or just like stress. I would have like asthma attacks at nighttime and stuff, and it was like pretty serious. I never really had to go to the hospital or anything, but I like always had an inhaler that I was supposed to carry around with me almost 24/7 until I was about 18. Basically, I carried an inhaler with me all the time.
Yeah.
But since then, like through sports and just like growing up a little bit, like I haven't had regular asthma since about when I was 18. So I haven't carried an inhaler with me. But one of the things about, I don't know, if within the past couple of years here of living in New York, when springtime comes around and allergy season, I usually have like 2 weeks of like insane allergies. And part of that has been like asthmatic symptoms. So, and I haven't had
trouble breathing kind of stuff.
Trouble breathing, usually at nighttime.
Not corona.
It's not corona. I got no other corona symptoms. It's all allergy symptoms. And I was kind of worried about that too. I was like, do I have the coronavirus? But I don't think I do.
Okay.
Anyway, it's 2020, so you can just like get, without having to go to the doctor, you can just like get prescription drugs now.
I love that.
And I looked it up, and it was through this like organization called Push Health. You're able to like fill out a survey, do like a live chat with a nurse, and they'll ask you a couple questions. They're like, "Do you have symptoms?" I was like, "Yes." Here they are. They're like, "Sounds good. Here's a prescription. I'll send it to your pharmacy."
Sick.
And I use this like online pharmacy called Medly. I think they have like a branch or something in Greenpoint, but they were able to process. I wish it was a little bit faster. I thought it was going to be like a couple days, but it took maybe like 5 days or so for me from start to finish.
In a week. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. Right.
I mean, if it's not critical life-saving medicine, even if it's like subscription, like it's a rolling basis, a week is the first time sucks, but then it's no problem.
Exactly. So yeah, I was able to sort of chat with somebody, get a prescription, and get it delivered to my door in about 5 days.
That's so good.
And it was pretty sweet. And I'm glad that type of thing exists. I was able to use my insurance for it. And in my research, there are a few other sort of similar pharmacy delivery services. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm just giving them Medley a shout out because I was appreciative. I was appreciative that their service exists and that it does what's intended. I didn't have to go to a doctor. I didn't have to go to Walgreens, and we got the medication I was looking for. So
Excellent, my
that's good
man.
enough for me. Yeah.
This is a real story I'm about to tell you. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. Um, so I played pee wee hockey when I was like 11 years old, maybe 10.
Hmm.
Um, ice hockey, and I hated it. And all the kids would call me like a, a bad slur for like gay people, and
Hmm.
like they were just mean kids, and I was kind of a soft doughy boy, and I hated it. I hated it.
Hmm.
I hated it. My dad was into it, but I hated it very much. So a few times I was just like so not having it and so distraught while at hockey practice, and I didn't want to be there. I would like sort of fake an asthma attack. Like sort of like I
Oh.
start off like a panic attack kind of, but then like they took me to the doctor, and the doctor sort of made some like leading questions that I could kind of figure out. Like,
Outsmarting the doctor
like
at age 10.
this is just like what I remember. I'm not saying I
Uh-huh.
did. This is what I
Uh-huh.
remember. Anyway, so they prescribed me like an inhaler for
Uh-huh.
fucking asthma, and so sometimes I'd like be able to stop playing hockey when I didn't want to, and like
Hmm.
have to. But also, I remember 24/7. They were like, "You got to take your inhaler everywhere with you." I love that fucking thing. I would suck on that motherfucker. I love the way it tastes. Like, like it just was great. I lost it after a while. I never got another prescription for it because like
Uh-huh.
everybody just sort of forgot about it after. I didn't have asthma either. Like, it's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I forgot about it, and then
Right.
eventually
Right.
I quit the hockey team like a year later. So, um, yeah, but there was like I had a brief flirtation with an asthma inhaler when I was a kid, and I really liked it. I had a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I was a pretty popular guy. There were a few kids in my class that had asthma stuff. One was like a
Yeah,
big, like, hiker kid. I remember Scott Denny. He would always, his whole thing, all the time, they were talking about how at whatever young age, I don't know, like 8 or whatever, he hiked Mount Whitney. He was like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, tallest mountain peak in North America. I was like, all right, Scott Denny. He also had asthma. So he had asthma. He would take his
Okay.
inhaler all the time. I had asthma. I would take mine all the time. And it was maybe like one other kid who had asthma who also had some sort of like
Yeah,
outstanding feature or something. So
yeah.
for some reason in my elementary, middle school, you always had to be like some sort of like something in order to have asthma that sort of
Yeah,
seemed like it unlocked
it was
special
hot.
powers for
It
you.
was
Yeah.
fucking hot. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like sixth grade
People would
hot.
ask about it like, oh, like, what's that taste like? I was like, oh, you could probably have it and it wouldn't hurt you, but you don't have asthma.
It's almost like I feel like it's almost like people wear like non-prescription glasses just for the aesthetic. I
Yes.
think it's totally fucking like that, or at least it was in my mind. It was like hot.
Yeah.
You like take out this like thing that looks like a gun, and you're like,
Yeah. Like like I had that thing on in my left pocket for so long that my denim jeans would have an
oh yeah,
inhaler
yes,
little like marking
like wear
on my
spot.
pants.
Yeah,
Exactly.
totally,
That's
totally,
how
totally.
asthmatic I was.
That's incredible. I want to apologize to you and asthmatic as a non-asthmatic for at one point in my life pretending to sort of be asthmatic. I want to
Yeah,
make
I'll
that
allow it.
formal on this
Yeah.
podcast for the first
I'll grant you a forgiveness on behalf of asthmatics to fakers like yourself. It's totally fine. It's the peer pressure. It totally wasn't your fault. It's
you
the peer
know,
pressure that got to you, and that's okay.
it did. It really got to me. I want to give a shout out this week. We're down at level 2 here in New Zealand, which means like there's recreational activities are back open, and Lots of cafes and restaurants are open, although some are seating and some are only doing takeout and some are only doing drive-through, and it depends on what they want to do, basically. But I went golfing for the first time in a while yesterday, and I shot fucking well. Just FYI.
Ooh.
I really felt good about it. Like I guess the time off serves me well because I beat the guy I was playing with who I played golf, a friend of mine, Michael. I played golf with him, maybe 3 or 4 times since I've been here, and he's just whooped my ass every time. And I fucking beat him yesterday.
Nice.
Which I think speaks more to like his having a bad day, but I was hitting him. So I want to give a shout out to Chamberlain Golf Course because like they're open, they're public, they're cheap, they're it's a fucking great hobby. I know I sound 80 years old, but like it's a blast. It's like just hanging out with a bud, whacking a couple of balls, getting frustrated, feeling great.
So I've never shot like a full golf game before. I went to a driving range like maybe once or twice and I was terrible at it. But if you're speaking to somebody who's sort of never played golf before, what are some of the key pieces of sort of getting your head into the golf game and sort of playing a nice game?
Well, with all athletics, as an athlete myself, as a former asthmatic athlete myself,
yes,
he's had to overcome a lot of fake asthma in his life. I would say like the key is always a short memory, right? Like you hit something and it doesn't go well, and then you just hit the next ball and don't pay attention to what happened before. You just like play the ball where it lies. But, I'm not a golf expert. What I will say is the driving range is so much fundamentally different experience than playing a course through. And the experience of driving from the blocks and all the way, and then hitting it off the rough and then hitting it, wherever, onto the green and then sinking a putt. Like that whole line of things happening and then that ball dropping in feels even if it took you 19 shots to get there, it's like hell fucking yes, it's in the hole. Like it feels so amazing.
Okay. So all right, so short memory, sort of forget your previous mistakes, focus on what's ahead of you. When you go home after a day of golf, sort of what is the type of thing that will keep you up at night, if anything? Like about the golf experience.
That's a great question. You can I've had time because it's a very twisty sport. My back hurts sometimes, so that actually keeps me up at night a little bit. I know again I sound 80 years old, but it does. Back hits. I'm sure somebody out there who is a golfer would be like, "Your back's hurting. You're not doing it this way," but probably I don't give a shit. I'll rethink. Like I had 2 very good holes in a row, and then I had 1 hole that was just like a nightmare. And so I'll like rethink all that stuff. I'll think about grip. I'll think about grip is big for me. And then it's just nerves. Like you do these practice swings, like 2 practice swings, and then you like line up to the ball. And there's this weird thing in your head where you're just like, this is the one I'm hitting it on.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what happens, this is the one.
Gotta swing through.
Gotta swing through.
Yeah.
So you just try to make that one the best you can. And I'd say if you have a public course, like fuck these private courses, you can get, I play with shit ass clubs, right? Like I play with clubs from the 80s and they're heavy as shit. But I love them, if you have a public course, get a set of clubs off Craigslist or whatever for $20, go out and whack a couple balls around. And the experience of getting in that hole will be the same, whether you're acing it or blowing it,
I'm down. I should at some point sort of play
play around.
Full game of golf. Play a full round. Yeah.
We should come here. We'll play together, man.
Yeah.
We fucking chill.
I'm down. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
it is it's one of the best hobby sports, in my opinion. And it only
Right.
takes 3 or 4 outings to get to a point where you're like, I can basically like have fun doing this rather
Uh-huh.
than like be frustrated the whole time.
Right.
So, do you want to get back to this movie?
Yeah. What else you got on 7 here?
Oh, I got some stuff.
Hell yeah.
Maybe. I think they need to remind us that Letty left and needed some space, because she disappears after Race Wars and then she comes back at the warehouse, and it's meant to be this moment that's like she showed up at the last minute and she's here to like be with the family and save the day and like make that commitment. But I just forgot about her for a while. Like there's so many people, and there's the funeral shit, and there's the Deckard Shaw shit I'm paying attention to, and there's just so much. And then Mr. Nobody comes, and I'm paying attention to Mr. Nobody for a long time.
Yeah.
And Ramsey and all this other crap is going on that I like forgot Letty is having this internal struggle where she's not there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that hits in the same way as for you.
I mean, when I think about that, when I think about sort of what it takes to be Letty and to come to the point where you know that you need space and have to break that news to Dom, that's sort of difficult in itself.
Yeah.
I would almost be upset. I imagine that like she showed up because Mr. Nobody tracked her down, invaded her space, and like dropped her a memo that was like, hey, we're doing this thing. The family needs you. And you know, if I guess, yeah. I mean, if I'm trying to place myself in Letty's shoes, like, don't interrupt me when I'm like trying to do my own thing. But if it's important enough, I guess I'll be there. And I think that's what that moment was supposed to be. It's like they set it up such that like this is big, and this is, you know, if you're ready for it, it's time.
Yeah, it's time. And this is part of being in this, is that even when it's not time, you know, you got to be ready for it. Basically,
right?
You know.
Ready to ride. Ready to ride or die.
Ride or die. That's it. Ride or die. Either ride with me or, you know, you're dead.
I'm going to die. You're going to die. Everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to die.
And then, you know, this was a backwards watch point that I'm going to bring up as my last thing. But, like, the elevator scene in Abu Dhabi where Letty and Dom get in an elevator together alone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "You look beautiful in that dress.
You look so handsome. I feel so awkward.
I feel, you know." But what he does say is like, "I'm loving this moment."
Mm-hmm.
And this is his quarter-mile speech in this movie, which we sort of talked about, like the internal moments where you reveal their like innermost character. But it's such a call to the first movie, because he's like, our lives have gotten so big. We're fighting submarines. We're driving tanks.
Mm-hmm.
We're computer programming wrecking balls and shit. We're doing all that, and our lives are so big that it's hard for me to remember that life is about moments, and especially moments with the person you love. And so he has this really nice moment with her in the elevator. It was like, for the next quarter mile that we're going to go vertically in this building. You know,
it's you and me.
It's
whatever happens in this quarter mile
happens.
It's for us. It's forever.
That's it. I love that. You know, he's changed the direction. It's gone from
I really like that
quarter mile to like a vertical quarter mile in the elevator.
That's ridiculous and very beautiful at the same time, you know? Yeah.
But that's these movies, right? These movies are just like really ridiculous, but it's really beautiful
right?
At the same time.
Yeah. I feel that. Wow.
I feel it too, man. I don't think I could top that, either figuratively or in a literal elevator sense this week.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe can the tuna there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's beautiful. That's a great place.
Beautiful. Listen, if you want a great place to go to get in touch with us, you can go to Twitter at Nolt Podcast, NOLTT Podcast on Twitter. We have an Instagram, I believe. Yes, Daryl?
We do at No One Likes the Tuna podcast.
And that is also, we're No One Likes Tuna Podcast on Facebook still, sort of. I think we'll get a notification if you get in touch with us there. Is that true? But we're not really active there.
Yeah, we might get a notification.
Daryl, we've turned off notifications for Facebook, and so
I have notifications on. It's hard for me to tell what they are because I don't normally look at them.
Everybody, take that what you will. So then, what's the next thing? Patreon.com/No One Likes the Tuna Podcast. We have a couple cool things there. We're doing an exclusive Resident Evil podcast this year on the Patreon, and throw us $1. We don't really have tiers. We're like you can throw us $1 to $4, and if you want to throw in more, I guess great. But or if you want, whatever. That's where we're at, and you get everything. And what else? Apple Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Rate and review. That's all I got. You good? Yeah, that's
I'm
it
good,
for me.
man.
All right, man.
No One Likes the
Real.
Tuna. We'll talk next week.
Beautiful, baby. Keep riding that quarter-mile elevator at a time.
vertical quarter mile
Vertical
for us
quarter
all.
mile.